Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Unicorns and Typewriters. My name is Skylar and I'm back today with another exciting video. So today's video is going to be a little bit different. I have been hinting at this for a very long time, promising to do this for a very long time, and I am finally going to, in fact, do a video on travel. I hope that this video is useful for some people and that you enjoy watching. Please comment down below and let me know. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and that is culture shock. So I know that a lot of people feel that Western countries are very similar. So a lot of times the US and the UK get grouped together and kind of considered to be Western culture. That is reasonable. There are definitely a lot more similarities. There's not a ton of videos on culture shock between the US and the UK, and the ones that are out there kind of all talk about the same things. And I find that they talk a lot about food and just kind of little interactions and the way people interact, and those are all completely valid culture shock issues. But I lived in the UK for a year. I lived in Bath, England. It's about an hour and a half train ride away from London, and it is a small city in the UK. So it is a very genuine British city. So I might have had a different experience than someone who lived in London, because London is a very international British city. If you are moving to London or visiting London, either way, I think you could find something interesting in here for yourself. So the first thing that would actually apply to anywhere in England that I want to mention is the grading system in England. So this is something you might have heard about a little bit in other videos like this one, but I feel like it's worth touching on because I really didn't fully get the gravity of it before I was there and being graded at my university that I went to. I got my master's degree at Bath Spa University. They have a much different grading system than what we have in the United States. So in the US, we have A, B, C, D, and then you fail basically if you get below that. So in England, things are a little more black and white than that. You have a scale of pass, merit, and then exemplary. Basically, my professors told me when I started that they hardly give anything ever that would be considered anywhere near 100% as far as grades go. There's hardly anyone that ever gets above a 90. And so they basically told us from the start is that if you pass, that's considered good. Like that's a good grade. That's not like in the States, if you just pass by and you get C's and everything, or a couple D's and you're able to like just pass, it's not good. It's not really considered good. But in England, it's like a pat on the back if you pass. And then if you get a merit, it's like, wow, that's really good. Great job. It's almost like getting an A in the States. And then if you get an exemplary, it's like getting an A+. So it's kind of confusing, and they basically don't give out exemplaries very often at all. So don't be shocked or surprised when you go to England if you're going for university and you don't get any exemplaries and you just get passes and merits, because that's actually considered really good. It was difficult for someone like me because I worked really hard in school growing up, and I was kind of like an A+ student. So going to England and basically being told, yeah, the chances of us ever even giving you an A are really low was hard, but I accepted it and I just did my best not to feel sad inside. Yeah, British grading systems, some real anxiety inducers. The next thing I want to speak about, which is something that can be shocking, and it's definitely something that I heard a little bit about before going, but I don't think I fully really came to terms with it either until it was something that I had actually experienced. Basically, a lot of the housing in England has leaking and mold issues. That's very common, which can be really shocking for Americans because, you know, we tend to be scared of mold, where in England, they tend to be like, it's just a part of life. I don't know that that's right on a health standpoint, but it's definitely true. And they say when you are looking for an apartment in England, you should be cognizant of this. Unfortunately, I think that landlords especially take time to cover up any of these signs. My place that I ended up choosing didn't really show damage, but I ended up having a lot of issues with leaking. I didn't see a lot of mold, so I think that was kind of under control, but the leaking was bad enough that I'm sure there were probably some hidden mold problems. I did have like a heating kind of unit burst and leak everywhere at one point, and my entire carpet was wet, and basically all my landlord did was give me a dehumidifier. I also had water running down one of the walls at one point. So there was literally a stone wall that kind of made up the back wall of my apartment, and there was just water running down the wall one time when it was raining really hard. One time it was particularly bad, but I saw it on multiple occasions. The one time it was really, really bad, the water was literally running over an electrical socket, and I called my landlord, really panicked because I was like, this is not safe. I'm really concerned for my safety. And she was basically like, yeah, it's fine. It's not a big deal. It's totally safe. Don't ever call me late at night about this again. I also had a leak over my bed. I was like putting pans and bowls on my bed to collect water so that the water was not getting like into the bed. And I ended up leaving a month early, so I didn't do anything to force the landlord to fix it. I tried my best to talk it through with them and get them to fix things, and they did have someone on the roof once or twice, but it was like a family friend, not a real like repair person. That was kind of a little sketchy. So it's gonna be a thing that you encounter, unfortunately. Even if it seems like your apartment is great for the first 3 months, I can guarantee you're gonna have some kind of leak or mold issue during your time living in England. I can't even imagine that it's not gonna happen at all, but maybe you'll luck out and find a really great place and a really great landlord. I wish you the best, because I had so many issues. That brings us to our next point. The next culture shock that I thought was a really big deal that I've never seen any YouTuber or list talk about. This was something that was fully new to me when I arrived. So I knew going that they do not use air conditioning very frequently. A lot of places do not have air conditioning units. I was aware of that. I knew what I was walking into. It was really, really, really hot in the summer. I knew that the way people dealt with this was fans, which I did get like just a freestanding fan to use, which was a lifesaver. And I also kept windows open a lot. That's all things I kind of knew I was getting into. And in some ways it felt kind of good to know that myself and the people around me weren't putting that stress on the environment of constantly running ACs. I do kind of like that about England. But anyway, regardless, the thing that was super shocking that I had not heard of from anyone is that they do not use window screens in England. So this might not seem like a big deal. Well, when you don't have window screens, there's bugs, and bugs come in your windows. Which is so fun, but not. So this was something that really confused me, because I'm like, all right, so most people in England keep their windows open in the spring and summer because it's too hot to not. There's no AC. I get that. Why wouldn't you just have window screens? It's just something that usually comes with American homes. But no, not in England. And it's not just apartments either. It is homes. They do not use window screens. And I asked quite a few people about this. I had someone even go as far as telling me, yeah, at night I leave my windows open and I keep my lights on. Bugs come in, all kinds of bugs. I wake up in the morning and my entire ceiling is covered in bugs. I've got like daddy long legs and those giant like flying things that are either mosquito eaters or giant mosquitoes and gnats and moths and stuff that's not going to hurt you and stuff that is going to hurt you, and tons of spiders, but that's another topic we'll get to soon. I ended up going on Amazon and buying like a screen sheet that I was able to just like attach to the inside of my one window. One of the big windows in the bedroom, I put the screen on because that was the one that I needed to keep open at night when it was, I had a light on in my apartment, dark outside, bugs would have just been swarming in otherwise. But I asked people, well, why? Like, why not just get a screen, especially in a house, like have one built for the window. It'll keep all those bugs out that are so gross that you don't want like attacking you while you're sleeping. And I was basically told by people, yeah, because, well, it's just, it's another thing to complain about and we'd hate to not have this to complain about. And I was like, okay. I don't know. There's some kind of joke that British people like to complain. I didn't make that up. Don't look at me. Don't come for me. That's what I was told. I was literally told by British people. They understand that it is smart. They understand that other countries do it, but what would they complain about if they used screens like logical people? So that was shocking. This next one is a completely shocking thing, total culture shock for me that nobody warned me about, and I'm still upset about it, and I'm still upset that nobody talks about this, so I'm gonna be the person that talks about it. Here we go. I've been waiting for this moment to tell the world. England has a spider problem, like an extreme spider problem, like I have seen nowhere else, anywhere else, have never heard of, did not know was a thing before I got to England and started living there and started experiencing the spider problem. So since this is also a booktube channel, a lot of you might also be into books, and even if you're not, most people have either seen the movies or read the books, the Harry Potter series. And you know, there is that scene where Ron and Harry are following spiders, and Ron says the famous line like, spiders, spiders, why couldn't it be follow the butterflies? They're following all these spiders into the forest, and then as you know, there are these giant spiders in the forest that have just grown to be massive. And as a kid, I thought that was so scary, and as I grew up, I thought that was so original. I was like, wow, J.K. Rowling, original concepts, giant spiders that come from the castle and they go to the forest and then they grow and they're massive, and wow, what a concept, what an author, what a unique idea. As we all know, I'm not a huge fan of J.K. Rowling anymore, and I did also realize in the last couple years, she's really not as good or unique or of original as a writer than I originally thought she was, which is really upsetting to find out, because the truth is she used reality to write about those spiders in the Harry Potter series. That is actually based off fact. No, there are not spiders that are like bigger than a person, as far as we know. But it is true that spiders in England grow to take up the amount of space that they are given, basically, which is so creepy and upsetting. But as far as I know, they don't get any bigger than like tarantula size, like this big, which is still, that's a massive spider, okay? No one is okay with just like random tarantulas just running around, except for in England. In England, everyone is okay with this. It's not just like you see them scurrying by in the forest and you're outside and you're like, wow, look at all those giants, but no. Nope, that's not how it works, no. These spiders are house spiders. They're called house spiders. That's what they call them in England. And they are literally considered to be like just little house pests. But like the worst part about it is that they don't care. People in England don't care. They're like, oh yeah, I was watching TV and a spider the size of a hamster ran by, and I was just like, another house spider. Like, who? I lived there for a whole year and I'm still upset about this. I'm still upset about this. People just don't care. They don't care. They think that's fine. If I was sitting in my house in the States and a spider the size of a tarantula or the size of a hamster like ran by my feet, I would freak out. I would worry it was poisonous. I would panic. I would be so upset I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. I know there are places in the States where larger spiders are more common, but those large spiders usually are really poisonous. So it's not like, it's still not a good thing. It's not something you would be okay with. And the thing about these house spiders is that they only live in houses. Like, they can't survive outside. They've become essentially domesticated spiders, which is very weird. And I'm making up that terminology. That's not really something I've heard, but it is a fact that they have to live in houses. A lot of the people in England think they're super humane because they don't kill spiders. They live in peace with the spiders. They will take them, they'll scoop them up, and they'll put them outside. Little do they know they are literally killing the spider because they can't live outside. It is, to me, a terrifying concept. I lived in a very, very small flat or apartment, so the spiders I saw were no bigger than, like, I saw ones like this big, which to me, that's a pretty big spider. And I'm not saying I saw them once in a while. They were like constantly around. So spiders like this big to be constantly around, to me, is a lot. I was at people's houses who lived in larger houses. The larger the house you live in, the larger the spiders will be. Like I said, I never really heard of them exceeding like tarantula kind of size. But yeah, I saw ones like this big in houses, and I don't even think that's as big. Like, they could get bigger than that. They could be pretty meaty. That's a gross way to describe spiders. Why did I just say that? Anyway, I was at someone's house and there was one of those like this big, which isn't even as big as they can get, but that's a big spider. And it was just like behind the couch, and we were sitting on the couch and they were just like, yeah, that spider's been there for a while. And they had one of the really big ones. They were like, yeah, one of the ones like this big. And it used to just run around the house. They would accidentally come close to stepping on it. It would run across their path at night when they were going to the bathroom from their bedrooms. It was so big that their cat, they had like an indoor cat. So this is a cat with a strong predatory like instinct to kill small creatures. The cat would not kill the spider because it was that big. I think the cat was scared of the spider. You know how alarming that is? I think that is the most shocking thing for me about living in England, and I saw that nowhere. As far as I know, this is the only YouTube video out there that talks about this. I don't know, if you live in London, you probably won't see this. When I was living like temporarily in a hotel when I first got to Bath, in the hotel, I did not see spiders. It has to be houses and apartments that have been around for a while, because the spiders get in and they like live in the roofs and they live in the basements and underneath the houses, and they live in the walls. They like infest the house basically over time. Yeah, you might not see them depending on where you're living in England. It might be less common. I'm telling you this to help you, but also there's really no saving you because there's no way to not be shocked by that as far as I'm concerned. So all I can say is my condolences. Woo, that is one thing that I do not miss about living in England. So another thing that can be shocking, this one is much tamer. I thought I'd give you guys something a little more reassuring than the last horrifying fact. Living in a small city like Bath, and I do actually believe this would be similar if you lived in London, you walk everywhere. You walk to the grocery store, you walk to the drugstore, you walk to restaurants. I actually really enjoyed that. I think that could be shocking to some people, and it definitely got tiring at times. Like, don't get me wrong, there were some times where like I had a cold or something and I had to walk in the rain to go to the grocery store, and I had to carry my grocery bags and carry an umbrella and figure out how to balance all of that. And that wasn't super fun. However, I felt really healthy while I was living in England. One thing was definitely that there's less chemicals and preservatives and weird stuff in their food. Their food has more natural ingredients, which is a really, really nice perk of living in England and really a lot of European countries as well. The second thing though is that I was walking all the time. I walked almost every day. Like, weirdly enough, I actually miss that a lot. And so that can be shocking, but I actually think if you're like me and you like to stay active and healthy, it's healthy and it's good for you. And I like that, and I miss that, and I wish I could do that. If I could make the choice to do that where I live now, I would choose to walk to the grocery store and walk to go out to dinner and things like that, but I can't because my area is just like not built for that. And I think that's probably true of a lot of areas in the United States. So speaking of going out to restaurants, there are two kind of culture shocky things that I want to mention about that. One is that they don't really do tipping in England. You can tip. It's not like some other countries. I've heard of countries like Japan and Korea where if you tip, they'll like chase you out of the restaurant to give the money back to you, and it's like insulting if you tip. That's not the case in England, but they are being paid much better than American servers, so they don't expect you to tip at all. But if people do tip in England, it's usually like in the States, 20% is kind of like, it's really rude if you tip lower than that. I mean, no one's gonna chase you out and make you tip if you don't tip in an American restaurant. It's just wrong because they don't get paid enough to survive if they don't get tips. But in the UK, they are getting paid enough to survive without tips. However, if people do tip, it's usually closer to like 10%. Some people don't tip at all. And as an American, I felt guilty not tipping because that's been my entire life. I've been raised, you tip, that's the right thing to do. There's really not a lot of reasons why you wouldn't. And so I would tip. I would tip a small amount, so it would be closer to like 10%. But I'd always tip, I'd always leave a little something. I felt the need to do that for the waiters and waitresses. I just think that's the right thing to do, so I did it anyway, but I did tip less than I would have in the States. It's a good thing to know. And now one other thing though about restaurants that I think is a really weird one that I did not know until I got there. If you order a Coke in a restaurant, yes, a soda, or at a bar, you have to specify that you want it with no twist. If you do not want your soda to automatically come with a lemon or lime in it. So I don't know, there's probably definitely people in the States that already do that. They like to put a lemon in their Coke. They like to put a lime in their Coke. To me, that's like really weird and I would not do that. But the first time I ordered a Coke, I was at a bar with people, I just wanted a soda. I got a Coke and they had put like a lime in it and they had, you know, squeezed it and everything. So it was very weird flavor to suddenly have when it's not something you're used to and not something you asked for, you know. In the States, you would specifically have to ask for that. And they would do that, sure, like there's no issue. In England, you don't ask for it. They just assume that you want your Coke, they call it with a twist. So if you do not want that, you specifically have to say, can I have a Coke with no twist or without a twist? And then you won't end up with a random surprise lemon or lime in your Coke. So that was something I found really shocking, which I know is just funny and goofy and dumb, but hey, we had to lighten the mood a little bit after talking about giant spiders, didn't we? So one more little tidbit is that when you look into going to England, you're probably gonna see a lot of people talking about that it's super cold. Something that was kind of a funny culture shock to me just because of my expectations was that, yeah, it's not really that cold in England at all. So I grew up in the Northeast. I'm used to winters being around like 20 degrees, 30 degrees Fahrenheit, lower than that. I've seen single digits. As a kid, we had some snowstorms. It was like 5 degrees out Fahrenheit. And then in college, I actually lived in upstate New York. I lived in Ithaca, New York. It was like negative 20 Fahrenheit. I've experienced that. So when I started looking into going to England and everything was like, yeah, it's really cold. And you know, you've watched the Harry Potter movies and they're all bundled up, and you watch like any movie that takes place in London, and they're all bundled up, hats and scarves and heavy jackets. And yeah, it never really gets a lot colder than like 40 degrees in the winter in England on average. Maybe if you're more north or in Scotland, yes, keep that in mind. I'm talking about London, Bath, you know, if you're in Bristol, Gloucester, Oxford, all those kind of areas are going to be pretty similar. We had like one day where we got weather that was like 28 degrees, 30 degrees or something Fahrenheit, and we got snow. And it was literally about 2 inches. Everything shut down. Everyone freaked out. It was like no one knows what to do. It's like panic. So it was kind of funny. But yeah, it really doesn't get that cold in England. So that was shocking to me. It's not really a culture shock thing, but it did shock me because of my expectations and what people had kind of told me. British people are babies about the cold. I was not impressed by the cold weather in England, not at all. The one last thing that can be kind of shocking on a culture shock level, I recently saw a video where someone said that British people are, and this was a British person saying this, that British people are polite to a fault. And watching them say that, I was like, so sure, yeah, no. So British people have a way of being polite, but to me, it can be really fake. And I think a lot of Americans would feel the same way. Sometimes they can be super ingenuine because they are trying so hard to be polite that it's fake and that they're not really being polite. And that's something I had to kind of learn while I was in England, how to sense. And I very recently had to have an interaction with someone that I knew from England, and I could tell right away that they were being like British polite to me. I was like, yeah, they are not gonna help me out with this thing I'm asking them to help me out with. It was something I needed help with from someone related to the university, and I won't go into it too much. I could tell right away that they were being British. I was trying to explain it to my parents. I was like, yeah, I tried emailing this person, and the response I got, like, it sounds nice. Like if you read it, it would sound like they want to help me, but you can tell that they're not gonna help me and that they don't wanna help me. And I know that as an American, I was shocking to British people sometimes because I'm blunt, honest, a little more outgoing than they're used to. And it's not, and that's weird because like I'm an introvert, so I'm not the most outgoing person in the world, but I'm really honest. So like I will tell people how I feel. And I think that scared people a little bit sometimes. So on that level, we get to shock each other and it's kind of fun. I'm just kidding. I think that being honest, although that's shocking, I think that's still less negative than being like fake polite, but it is what it is. You're gonna find fake polite people anywhere you go, but I do think if you live in England for any given amount of time, like longer than just like a couple weeks, then you will start to pick up on the way British people say no to things. And yeah, it's super polite. So polite. I made some amazing friends in England, and I did have some amazing people I know, and someone from England did actually just help me out really, really kindly with something I really needed. So I think it was really fun to live in England for a year, but these are just some culture shocks that I wanted to mention. A couple might seem familiar. Some of them I really haven't heard anyone else talk about, and I wish I had. I wish someone had warned me a little bit about some of these things. I don't think it would have stopped me from going. Spiders, I don't think it would have stopped me from going, but yeah, it's nice to know ahead. I hope that this helps someone. I hope that you all just enjoyed watching, even if it was just fun and funny to watch. Comment down below if you want to see more videos like this. Like this video if you enjoyed watching. Subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this, or book related videos, writing related videos, some K-pop videos. I do it all. Especially interested to hear what you guys think about travel related videos. Let me know down below, and I will be back with another video soon. Have a good rest of your week, everyone. Bye.